deviations from the mean, so at score 85 and 115, 2/3 of the population lie in that range, in the peak of the bell curve. I label such people, so average people if you like, in IQ terms, I label them peakers, right? They're peakers. So why is our media, particularly our television for example, so peakered? Why is it so peakered? Why is the quality or the lack of it, the level, the intellectual level of our media so peaked? Why is it aimed at this 2/3 of the majority of the population? Well, for economic reasons. Because in America, for example, the media is largely corporate. It's controlled by corporations. And the corporations use the media to make money. You know, it's a business, right? So they make television programs which are popular to the peakers because they're the vast majority. So now these people on the dumber than the peakers, that's 1/6 of the population roughly. So 2/3, and there's a symmetry. So these two fringes here, another third, and because of the symmetry. So this is 1/6. So about 1/6 of the population, I label them subs, right? Because they're dumber than these guys. And the upper 1/6, I call them soups, short for superiors, right? So subs, peakers, and soups. Now at the tiny fringe, you have your sages, right? So the soups and the sages, they do not get catered to in the media. So in a sense they're discriminated against if the media, especially when the media is corporate, right, as in America. Now in most European countries, a lot of the media is under government control. And so the government feels the moral obligation to cater to not just the peakers, but to the subs and the soups. And they do. So particularly in America, it needs its soups, or its sages, more likely to be the sages, to push for so that the sages, the soups, are not ignored, because that's what happens. And a similar argument for the subs, they just get ignored. And there's a lot more than that. There's a whole ideology, similar to say feminism or racism. So sageism, other factors are, for example, peakers tend to look on sages as weird. You get derogatory labels such as geek, nerd, egghead, stuff like that. So what's needed is a movement, a political, social movement by the soups, especially the sages, to hit back. I mean, just the way that the blacks did, the way women did, the way the older people did, with to make people conscious, raise people's consciousness about the phenomena of racism, sexism, ageism, and so on. So sageism. So that's one of the things I push, because I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, so sageism. Masculism. That's the male equivalent of feminism. In the early 80s, because a very political animal, as you probably realised. In the early 80s, I was in Europe. I was very active in the men's lib movement, and the major idea, and then again there's a whole ideology for men equivalent to what feminism is for women. But the major idea of masculism, European masculism, was that women should have careers. So we would say to, I need a few labels here, a traditional woman who expects to be kept financially by a man, we labelled a fluffy, based on the word fluff, meaning you take a bit of fluff from your woolen sweater, it's very light, and you let it drop, it'll float very slowly because it's so light. So fluff in the sense with connotations of light-headed, not serious, not adult, childlike. So we labelled such women fluffies, and it was a term of contempt, abuse, because the masculinist ideology was that saying to fluffies, if you want to get a man, have a career. So the essential masculinist idea was that women should work. Now that contraceptive pill and so forth has liberated women from arbitrary pregnancies, so women can control their own bodies, so they can choose the number of children they have and can get educated and pull their weight financially, have careers and so forth. Now that they can, they must. Okay? So we, as masculists, we're saying to men, and here's another new word, a traditional male who works for a fluffy, we labelled robot. So these male robots, well, male robots. So we'd say to the robots, here's another term, what do you call a woman or a man, but usually in the context of a woman who is financially independent person. So we label them FIPS, F-I-P, financially independent person. So as masculists, we're saying to the robots, these men who are traditionally expecting to pay for fluffies, a financially dependent wife or girlfriend, we're saying to them, rather a FIP than a fluffy. And to the fluffies, you can run on the shelf. What happens if your man, robot man, what happens if your man becomes influenced by masculist ideas and starts seeing you as a burden, as a parasite? So masculine essentially was a rebellion by men for the idea of working for women. It was pushing women financially to become FIPS, financially independent people. Okay, so that was masculism. Lots of essays on all these sort of topics, if you want. Now, Cosmism. It's the ideology in favour of the idea that humanity should build godlike, massively intelligent machines. And I see that issue, whether humanity should build, I call them artillect, that's artificial intellect, so these godlike, massively intelligent machines with mental capacities literally trillions of times above the human level. Because that's what the specialty called phys-comp, that's physics of computation, says is possible. These machines could have mental abilities trillions of times superior to human beings. So I see the number one political dominating question of our century, this 21st century, is should humanity build artillects? Yes or no? Right? So Cosmism is the ideology based on the word cosmos, because that's like the big picture. There's a trillion stars out there, right? That's the big picture, not our pathetic, puny little human lives that get snuffed out in a mere 80 years in a universe that's billions of years old, right? So small picture human and big picture cosmic, or cosmistic, if you like. So privately, I'm cosmist, right? And the ideology is cosmism. So, yeah. Lots of media stuff, especially, I've given lots of talks on the media, History Channel, Discovery Channel, BBC, CNN, whatever, lots, on this topic of cosmism. Okay? Globalism, I've talked a bit about that already earlier. Globalism is the ideology in favour of creating a world state. The internet speed keeps doubling every year. I call that phenomenon BRAD, another word I've coined. B-R-A-D. Bit rate annual doubling. Okay? So the internet speed doubles every year. And I see, as a physicist, I see effectively almost no limit to how tiny something can be that you put information onto. So I see this phenomenon, BRAD, just going on for decades. So in 30 years, that means, if that's true, humanity will have an internet that's a billion times faster than today's. And in 40 years, that'd be 1 trillion times faster than today's. So what on earth could you do with an internet that's so powerful? Well, within a few years, we will have wall-size screens in vivid three-dimensional imagery. So our mentalities then, and with such huge bandwidth, it keeps doubling every year. The bandwidth will be such that the whole planet will be able to get everything. Everybody gets everything. So we get all the world media, and in vivid 3 dimensions in your living room. You can travel the world. And so our as a result of that, with countries, governments sending out their national programs to the whole world, and of course that will put pressure then for a world language, and that decision has already been made. It's English. So the kind of linguistic snowball effect of English becoming more and more the world language, that process will run to completion. As the proportion of people who study English as a second language, as that pretty well saturates, as virtually everyone does that, then